If your step saves you $500 a year, but that step costs you $1,000 to do it, take the $500 hit and move on. I had a sign company that blew my mind. They actually had a book and they actually wrote projects in a full-on book, a piece of paper book. And I said, why do you do that? He goes, oh, because one year we lost a project and we never ever want to lose a project again. So every time you get a project, you have to write it in this book. I said, okay. When's the last time you went back to that book and checked to make sure you didn't lose a project? Hello, everybody. How we doing? You know, the old saying, a rising tide floats all boats. Man, we're doing that more than ever these days over here at Squarecoil. So many good ideas coming in from our customers. So many neat things. Just amazing. Let's see. What have we done last week? Last week, November. Halloween's finally done. We're moving on from that, which is good. For you guys on YouTube watching me, I got this little bandage here. We gave blood today. You know, the San Diego Blood Bank. We're always giving to them as much as we can. I usually do a double red cell. Today I did platelets. If anybody can explain to me the difference, I would be grateful because I have not a clue. All I know is I sat in that chair for another hour, another half an hour, another 30 minutes longer than I normally do. So it's like an hour and a half for this one. So not a clue why it took longer, what it's for, but the lady said they needed it. So here we are. Okay. We're going to go all the way back down to some foundational things here. And I'm going to look at something very, very differently in how we do things. You have an idea of how your company runs, right? I don't care if you're the manager, the owner, employee, day one, janitor, don't care. Every single person has a job to do to make the company run smoothly. So no matter where you are on that line there, you have a position, you have a duty to do. Yes. But my $10,000 question is, do you know where it starts? Do you know where it ends? And I'm not talking just your position, but the entire company. Where does the company get engaged? And where does the company disengage? At what part do you plug into and what part do you unplug while it is moving down this chain? So I had that question with our software and I said, okay, guys, this is kind of what the system looks like. This is how it flows through and let me see what happens. And our main developer, he's really funny how he talks and he goes, you know, Aaron, he goes, you ever watched a river, like really watched a river? He goes, the water runs from the beginning all the way down the end, right? Runs through the canyon. But if you drive down really deep and you start looking at it, there's parts of the river that are really, really deep. You can't touch the bottom. And there are other parts that you can be standing there and you're only in ankle deep water. He goes, you ever notice that? I said, yeah. And he goes, a little weird, right? It's the same amount of water running through, but some of it's ankle high and some of it's really deep. I said, yeah. He goes, do you notice how over by the pools and the estuaries, the water starts to spin backwards and the water will get clogged or held up there? And if you were to actually drop like a leaf or something in the river, it'll stop and just swirl. And I said, yeah, no, that makes sense to me. And he goes, yeah, that's what software does. He goes, it doesn't flow. Sometimes it goes back and forth. It goes back and forth. It does little different things. He goes, you're going to find out something a little bit different. I said, well, how do you suggest that we look at our software platform in such a way that we can then understand what our internal bottlenecks are, our internal processes are, and then we can go from there. I said, well, how do you want to do it? How do you want to figure out what's going to happen? He says, well, I would like to map it out. I said, okay, go for it. Map it out. Have you ever tried to map something when you know it in your head and you know it like the back of your hand and it's really, really straightforward, but you're so close that you actually know all the little intricate details and all the little differences? Yeah, that's what we're doing right now with the software. And I thought it was such a good idea. I'm starting to do it with the sign company. I'm mapping out the trajectory of every single way a project comes in and it goes out. Small segue here. Want to talk to you guys about Squarecoil software and what it does for your companies. If you're the type of guy that's still doing pen and paper and you think you're rocking and rolling, you just might be, but you're not running at the most efficient pace possible for yourself. Imagine doing a report. You want to know how many sales each salesperson did for the entire year. So you sit down and get all your books out and it takes you 2-3 hours to build this Excel spreadsheet and you got your answer. But what if you could just click a button? And then your 2 or 3 hours are back in your hands and you can evoke change inside of your company for those 2-3 hours versus building a report. That's what Squarecoil software does for you. That's what we bring to the table in the way of efficiency. So check us out if you're not using us. Do you know how insane this map is so far? And I'm only on day 2 of doing this. The software map's a week and a half old. It looks like a circuit board. It is unbelievable how many different pieces there are, if-then statements, where it goes, where it doesn't go, where it gets clogged up, where it changes. It is mind-blowing what it looks like when you actually map it out. I want you to think of your company. I want you to actually do this exercise. Map out your company. When a project goes haywire, who takes over? If a project goes smoothly, where does it go? At what point in time do you get involved? At what point in time does your designer get involved? At what point in time does your salesperson get involved? Map out your flow. I'll be very honest with you. I thought my sign company is a very smooth and oiled machine. They flowed in A, they went out B, game over. No. I cannot tell you how many little whirlpools, I guess that's the term I'm going to use for today, how many whirlpools are in the mapping of my sign company. They're there for a reason. They're important, but can they be smoothed out? 100%. But I couldn't believe how many I had. I'm up to 18. If you had asked me before, I would have said, 2 or 3. No, 18. I have 18 little whirlpools that the water is going backwards on my flow in something where it doesn't really make sense on paper. In the real world, does it make sense? Well, yeah, we've all been living that way. Project manager has a problem, goes back to accounting. Accounting has a conversation with it. It goes to the owner. Why was accounting involved? That makes no sense. Well, that's how we've always done it. Aha. The statement has been made. That is always how we've always done it. I've talked about this before. I'm going to say it again. Have you ever heard this joke? It's one of my favorite jokes because it's a thinking joke. We're about to have Thanksgiving, and I'm watching my wife, and my wife cuts off a part of the turkey. And I said, what'd you think? She goes, well, my grandmother always did it. She taught me how to prepare the turkey. So I go to the grandmother and I go, why'd you cut that part of the turkey off? She goes, well, my great-grandmother did it. I go to great-grandmother and go, why did you cut off that part of the turkey? And she goes, oh, because it won't fit my oven. My oven's too small. Now you laugh, but that is what happens in so many companies. You do something for a specific reason. Case in point, I had a sign company that blew my mind. They actually had a book, and they actually wrote projects in a full-on book, a piece of paper book. And I said, why do you do that? And he goes, oh, because one year we lost a project, and we never, ever want to lose a project again. So every time you get a project, you have to write it in this book. I said, okay. When's the last time you went back to that book and checked to make sure you didn't lose a project? He literally went white. He was like, we'd never do. I'm like, okay, so this exercise is old. It's now legacy. It's debunked. You don't need it anymore. Stop doing that. Stop using this step. It's not part of your system anymore. You can put that down. That's like us going to the hay fields and getting hay for our horses. Who owns a horse? We all have cars now. We don't go and get hay anymore. The cars don't run on hay. But it's an old thought process that nobody ever asked, why are we doing this? So as I'm mapping out the companies, both of them, I'm trying to figure out, why do we do it this way? Maybe there's a slicker way. Maybe we don't need this step at all. I love it how we print the paper out and we put it in a folder so it doesn't get lost. Well, inside the software, you just do a search and here's all the projects. I don't need that piece of paper. Let's stop killing some trees. Let's save some money on printer costs. Maybe we don't even need this file folder here anymore. There's so many different things that I feel like over the years we've built and we don't need. How do you know if they're going to be used? There's only one way, really. You can either have there's 2 ways. I'm going to take that back. 2 ways. Number 1, a committee. Get everybody together, hash it out exactly every step you do for edible. Has anybody ever seen a committee work? Has a committee ever come to a solid conclusion that makes sense? Absolutely not. So that is a debunked way. You feel like it's faster. You feel like you got more brains on it. Trust me, it's not going to be better for you at the end of the day. You're just going to waste everyone's 8 hours. Map it out. Put it down on paper. That way, when you're done, you can go home and you can sleep on it. Come back and stare at it. Stare at it, go home, sleep on it. After 3 or 4 days, you're going to start to see your company completely different. It has now been mapped out and you start to draw different areas in the maps, different avenues. Why does it need to flow this way? Let's make it flow. It flows from left to right, A to B. Get it done. And you always have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What was the reasoning behind it? Does that reasoning still make sense? I'm going to leave you this last little bit. I say this all the time. I'm going to continue to say it. I will beat this drum till the day I die. If your step saves you $500 a year, but that step costs you $1,000 to do it, take the error, take the $500 hit and move on. Stop putting a process in place that costs more than the error that it's solving. It's not worth it because you might even get lucky and a human will intervene and you won't have that error. But if you do that extra step, you're slowing your company down in the progress and the efficiency of what it is. So tip of the day, word of the day, mapping. It seems daunting. Get out your butcher paper, big 4-foot sheets of butcher paper. Best, it's easy to map it out and draw it out. Don't worry about doing it clean. Just do it rough, super fast. I did it twice. I did it rough and then went back and did it clean. But once I've mapped it out and I stared at it and looked at it, it was really interesting of how the workflows work. And I did make some changes. Were they huge changes? No, actually not. Were they little changes? Yeah. Didn't have accounting in some of the projects. Maybe the owner didn't need to be part of some of those change orders. Maybe there was a dollar threshold before we enacted it, where before there was no dollar amount. Everything had to go through these extra steps. Little changes to speed up the efficiency. Is that going to add to the bottom line? Yeah. How much? I have not a clue. It might add a couple grand, might add 10 grand. But if you guys saw 10 grand sitting there on the floor and you walked by it and nobody was claiming it, it was out in public, would you stop and pick it up? Absolutely, I'd stop and pick it up. So if I'm going to stop outside and pick it up, I'm definitely going to pick up the efficiencies inside my company and make it a better old machine. You will love your pocketbook will love it. Your employees will love it. And their bonuses should reflect it. Speaking of bonuses, December is around the corner. So start thinking about that because we're 3 weeks away? It's closer than you think. Talk to you guys next week.